Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're discussing self-care, or really self-survival during a pandemic. Our routines have been upended, and we're all being asked to do new things under stressful conditions. How do we take care of ourselves while also taking care of our families during this crisis? We've got some ideas, and we also want to hear yours. Let's get started. Hi, Mindy.
Hey, Marie.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, Marie.
It's so great to see you guys today. It's even better to record now that we don't actually get to see other people outside our houses in person.
Yes.
True.
Our topic for today, I think it's so current and just applicable to how we're all feeling after myself. It's been about a month at home. Self-care. You know, self-care was a big topic before the coronavirus, but I think now we might need to change our way of thinking about it and call it self-survival.
I'm not doing as much as you guys. You have people that you're constantly caring for. And I imagine that you were wishing somebody was caring for you right now, after being cooped up with so many people for so long.
Yeah, I feel like I have gotten dressed for church because I want to, because I'm tired of wearing my sweatpants and my leggings and stuff. So I'm like, I'm going to get all dressed up for church to include like my wedge heels and stuff. And
wow.
Go down and sit on my couch, and then I get, ready for my afternoon nap.
Well, I think that the topic of self-care can feel a little uncomfortable to talk about because it kind of makes us feel like we're self-important or self-absorbed. And we all know that we're supposed to take care of ourselves before we can take care of others. But really, I think that we sort of feel a little bit guilty about taking care of ourselves. So in the midst of this coronavirus quarantine, self-care is probably more necessary than ever, but it's even less likely to be happening. Because with the loss of routine, we've probably lost our routine of self-care. I don't know, how do you guys feel, Mindy and Julie? Do you feel like you're kind of floundering on routines and what to do?
I don't think I realized how much I craved silence. I hate to say that. I love my family. I love that they're home, but somebody's always talking to me or around me. And I don't think I realized until I kind of lost it the other day that I was so depleted. I hadn't noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do love routine. And it's the hardest part about this for me is that every day seems new and different. Like it's almost like you can't make plans because things change and your plans just don't even seem to matter sometimes. It's very odd.
Yes. Well, because we're all struggling with this ourselves, we assume that listeners are probably struggling too. So we've brought on a guest, Jeana Floyd, and she's going to share her wisdom with us. Jeana is a mom to 2 sons and 7 adorable grandchildren. She's been married for 43 years, and she's been a pastor's wife for that long also. So you've dealt with a wide variety of people over the years, and I'm sure you have lots of scenarios and what we can and should be doing for self-care. Jeana, welcome to Midlife Matters.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, it's great to have you. And we're kind of like, how can we take care of ourselves in this time?
For one, I think everything's changed. I think our definition of self-care has probably changed tremendously for all of us in one way or another. And those things that we felt like we just really, really needed and had to have, a lot of those things have gone by the wayside to where we are in more of a survival mode. The details might have changed, but that inner desire and that inner tranquility, I don't think has changed. It's just how we are going to accomplish it now during these days. For all of us, we've had to take a look at what we thought maybe was highly important and what's maybe not so important after all.
I know in my own life, I started out really strong. A month ago when my kids came home, well, I don't know that I was thrilled. I think I've said on the podcast before that I thought, how are we ever going to do this? But I did start out in a pretty good place. compared to my level of self-care today, a month later. Like after a month of all of us being home together, my husband included, because he's working from home, I'm needing some help getting recentered and in a good headspace. I feel like I'm running on about 10% battery every day. So I'm really interested in what we're going to be talking about. So let's get to some specific scenarios that listeners may be dealing with. And Mindy has the first one to describe to us.
Okay, so let's start with the young mom that has young children in her home and in her care 24/7, and for the first time ever finds herself homeschooling for the first time. That mom, try to self-care.
Yes, that's really relative to our family because both of my daughter-in-laws are experiencing this for the first time. One daughter-in-law has 4 children. One daughter-in-law has 3. And for the first time, they are practicing homeschooling. One started 1 week before the other one. So the other one was asking for tips. How do we survive this? One of the things was, to have a routine, to get up. This probably is my personality coming out, but I think it's not to anyone's advantage to stay in your pajamas all day long, letting your kids stay in their pajamas all day long. That might have been fun for the first 2-3 days, but I think you lose all sense of control when that happens. And so I would advise these young moms that are homeschooling for the first time to get up, try to have that done by noon or early afternoon. And I think giving those children a goal to work towards will be helpful for them. And I've heard other homeschooling moms that do it on a regular basis. That's what they do. And I think also during this time, we've got to give grace to one another, moms to kids, kids to moms, wives to husbands. It is a new grace and mercy period for all of us.
I love that. I love that because you do have to, in essence, create your own routine. And I think maybe once we got over the hump, like Marie said, we've been doing this over a month now. And so at some point you get tired enough. You're like, all right, we've got to do something. But I totally agree with you. Just changing your clothes and brushing your teeth can make all the difference in a day.
Jeana, what would you recommend for the young mom? Say she gets done homeschooling, like what can she do to kind of recharge herself?
It's going to take a lot of planning, and for some that comes more easily than others. We rise to the occasion for self-care, self-survival, having a set-aside time for those young moms to be able to say, okay, this is what I need you to be doing during this time, this period time, and let mommy have some time, and then we'll all get together, and giving those children maybe just something small to look forward to. I've learned that with my grandchildren, it doesn't always have to be something big and mighty. Sometimes it's the smallest incentive to be with them and to plan something really simple, and they respond really well.
That's true. Julie, you homeschooled for a lot of years. Do you have any thoughts on what moms who are thrown into homeschooling for the first time can do to take care of themselves?
I would agree with her about getting up and getting dressed. I always set an alarm clock, even though we didn't have to be finished by a certain time. We had the whole day. I like to get up at a certain time, get dressed, everybody show up for breakfast, start. And then I do agree giving yourself some time in the afternoons where your kids can be alone, if they're able to be on their own, where they really can't access you and can't bother you, giving you a time to read or just be alone, to take a walk or be outside. Marie, like we talked about this morning, I think it's important that there's actually that physical separation, because if you're just overhearing them maybe argue or fuss or whatever, then you're not resting, you're not relaxing. So I think you need that physical separation.
Right.
For a short time, just to recharge.
Yeah, and maybe give yourself permission if they aren't really young enough to entertain themselves. TV's not an enemy here. Set them up with a movie and say, hey, I'm taking an hour or an hour and a half for myself, and they'll be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
I knew a young mom that she would wait for her husband to get home at night. She would take a bath almost every night, literally just the water running would block out the noise of the house. She knew her husband was with the kids. And she said, those baths have saved everyone in this house's life.
Have you guys seen that commercial? It is so funny. I thought about it today. There's a woman laying on the bathroom floor eating, I think, chocolate, and she can't even get in the bathtub because it's filled with kids' toys. And there's a knock on the door, and it's like, "Mommy, Mommy." And she lowers her voices and she said, "It's Dad." And the kid just walks away.
Isn't that
like,
so true?
I don't need Dad. I need Mom.
Right. How come they don't dare interrupt Dad?
Exactly.
Well, Julie, you were sharing with me something that your daughter's doing to kind of get away now that her husband and child are at home full time. They're all together.
Yeah, they're all home together and they have a 6-month-old. And she said she likes to just go out and take a drive, go by and pick up a coffee. She could listen to a podcast or just some favorite music. And that's something I've done a couple of times. Just take a drive. I mean, Tennessee's beautiful. You can just pick a country road and it just feels good to go somewhere and then to come back home instead of just stay home all the time.
I love that Molly is doing that. What a great idea.
All right, Jeana. Well, let me give you another scenario because I'm kind of dealing with this. I am the mom of 3 teenagers and then 2 young adults. But 3 teens are home and they've been home for a month. You know, they don't need me to help them do physical things like get them dressed, brush their teeth, make their breakfast, but they need direction. And they need someone to say, okay, let's get up at least by 10 and do some work before lunch. And then I need these chores done. And then you can also always hear them in the background and they're always forever walking around and then they're getting in a fight. So what can the mom of teens or college students that are back home again, what can we do? Because we still have to be available, but we're feeling a little overstimulated.
With teenagers, I think this is a great time if we can find the positive in this season that we're all in. I think it's a great time to teach those teenagers some life skills that prepare them for adulthood. And maybe those are already set in place. I know my daughter-in-law with the older children, the oldest grandson is 14. She's going to take this opportunity to, they already help with laundry and chores, but just some of those things like teach them to iron, teach them, things that are going to be life skills that mom won't always be around and they need to learn on their own. I know those 3 boys have been in the kitchen cooking with their daddy. And what a great opportunity. I think anything that we can teach the children, the teenagers, that they're not going to normally get, because a lot of times in our normal world, they're so busy with school and sports and activities that they really don't even have time to do these. And I know some kids go off to college and don't even know how to start a load of laundry. So I think it's a perfect time for everybody to pitch in and learn some new life skills, and especially for teenagers. They can do it.
Yeah, that's really a great point. At the beginning of this quarantine, I knew it was going to be kind of long, and I've been a little neglectful of teaching my kids chores. But I thought for my own self-survival and self-care, I need to not be the only one doing chores around here. So when they clean up the kitchen after dinner, I just leave and go up to my bedroom and shut the door. Some things where if you teach them to do it, you might be able to carve out a little bit more time for yourself. Mindy, what have you been doing? Because I know you have teens and young adults in your house.
I do. And it's hard sometimes because they'll stay up later than what I want to stay up. Just kind of have to get used to going to sleep before everybody's in bed. Especially when you have college students come back to the house. If I need to, I go up to my room at 8:30 or 9. I've got a book on my nightstand. I will take a bath if I need to. I know, Marie, you mentioned before you were getting up earlier in the morning to have alone time. You just don't want to have to talk or interact, because it's kind of at the beginning part of the day or the end of the day that you really have to carve it out. Throughout the day, I mean, my kids will still get in little sibling fights and rivalries and things like that. And so, I feel like I need to be kind of on hand. But yeah, if I can find time at the beginning or the end of the day, That's golden hour.
Right. Well, and the only time your teens are going to be sleeping when you're not is probably at the beginning of the day.
It's the morning. That is right.
And I do think that's important to never be working alone, because I had the tendency to want to just do things myself because it was easier and quicker.
Right.
But I was also resentful, like, why is nobody else doing anything? So that just kind of keeps that resentment at bay. Like, if I'm working, then everybody else should be doing something. It doesn't have to be to the level that I expect or whatever, but they just need to be doing something. They can pull weeds. They can cut the grass. They can water the plants. They can do something.
What is that saying about idle hands and like getting in trouble or something?
I can't remember the saying, but I'm constantly thinking of it when I see my kids not doing anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, they need something to do. So if I can give them something to clean, according to how I think it looks clean,
right,
then they are much happier, and so am I.
Right, right. All right, Julie has another scenario for you, Jeana.
Yeah, Jeana, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I'm the empty nester. I do have one college-age son at home, but it's pretty lonely here. My husband is still working full-time. So I'm really missing social interactions and getting out. So what advice would you have for someone like me?
I'm sort of in your similar stance, except that my husband is working at home now, and that's been new and different. I think that social media, our Zoom calls, conference calls, picking up the phone and having a conversation, hearing someone else's voice, since we just moved 10 months ago, basically most of my deep friendships are away from here. And so I have had to learn, because I'm not a real phone talker, but I have had to learn the benefit of just picking up the phone and hearing their voice, because I think we're so prone to text and email and that type of connectivity, that just seeing faces. I had just joined a Bible study. All those faces are new to me. And yet now we're doing our Bible study by Zoom call. And it's helping me because their names pop up below their faces on the screen.
Oh, that's great.
So it's kind of, it's a cheat element for me, but it's helpful. Just, friends and acquaintances. Earlier this week, we got both of our families, our boys' families, and we all had a Zoom call together. Now, when you get 7 children on that Zoom call, you know what that is. It's crazy. But I think a lot of that also, Julie, has to do with personality. I love people, but I'm more of an introverted. I just don't ever get bored at home. I've always got something to do. But yet, even with my little introverted personality, I miss being with people, going to the gym with people that I know and everything. And so I think we make the best of what we have right now, and that's through technology. It's a season. And so I think there are many, many lessons to be learned. Our world has been paralyzed by this virus, and everyone's life is affected in one way or another, some really great and some small, but each of us has to kind of work through. And I think it helps you to realize, hey, I really do miss being with people, and yet finding ways to connect with them the best that we can during this season.
Yeah, I'm like you, Jeannie. I have always considered myself an introvert, but yet I really do thrive on social connections. It's kind of a odd thing. I think anytime you have too much of something, even if it's a good thing, it's too much.
Yes,
I do enjoy time at home. I have always considered myself kind of a homebody, but too much of that, and you need something different.
We're going to all be extroverts by the time this is done.
Yeah.
Or will it be like extremely socially awkward? We won't know how to interact with people anymore.
John was driving us to the grocery, so I was in the passenger seat, and we're stopped at a red light, and I look over and I see a friend. I was hitting the button like to roll the window down, and it was on childlike. And I was like, John, unlock the window now. I see Cindy Harvey over there. And so we honk at her. She rolls down her window. And I was like, people.
Oh,
So I said, where are
my-
you going? And we exchanged where we were going. And she had her dog with her. So it was just so funny that we were so
Aw.
excited to like see somebody we knew.
Yeah, yeah.
well, changing directions just a little bit, I wanted to ask you about just the temptation of turning to the media, to news, reading the news. It's easy to do that right now with this pandemic of the coronavirus. And so it can easily, though, put us into an anxious state or a fearful mindset. So what would you recommend with kind of creating boundaries for your media consumption?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I really identify with that. And I have purposely been careful about the amount that I listen to news. I really believe, as responsible Americans, we need to make ourselves aware. But a lot of this is repetitive. And if you listen to it, like at the end of the day, you'll get it all. And I don't think we have to have, for me personally, I don't need a steady stream of that. Or by the time the news comes on, I've just about tanked. I listened to a message by a pastor last Sunday, and he said, listen to 30 minutes of news a day, but balance that out with 30 minutes of something good, good music, praise music, reading your Bible, something that's going to be uplifting. It's the fear of the unknown, I think, that has grasped me more than anything. But just limiting it, just physically saying, I'm going to listen to a certain amount of news per day, and then I'm done with it, you know?
Yeah, one of the things that I do for myself is I won't even listen to the news. I'll only read about it because there's something about their intense voices blowing it up in my mind that makes me more anxious than if I just read it on a piece of paper.
Yeah. And you know, something I noticed, Marie, the other night is listening to it because I think I was doing something with my hand, you know, a project. But then when you look up behind just their talking, they're just running scenes of morgues and those same footages of all those ERs.
Yes.
Like, we've seen that. Why are we still looking at that? You know what I mean? They're old videos, but they still just keep flooding your mind with all these visual images of the carnage, the destruction. You know, it's like, that's not even new news. Like, that's, I don't know. I just don't feel like that.
It's
has
designed
go
to
with
make
it.
you feel anxious. That's
Right.
They're really designing it that way. Well, another thing that can make me feel anxious, and maybe this is just my personality, but if you get on social media, you can find a lot of posts about, look at all that I'm accomplishing. My closets are cleaned out. My photos are in order. I've learned to make 3 new recipes. My kids are, advanced with their homeschooling, whatever. And you kind of feel like, man, if I can't be creative and productive right now, when will I be? And yet I feel like I am accomplishing so little. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think that goes back to before coronavirus. You know, we have before coronavirus and after coronavirus, and some of it's the same. I think that's just being the best that you can with the time. I think, again, this has made us all evaluate our time because we're more confined to our homes, obviously, which makes us have to look at those closets that have needed to be cleaned out. But, that's never on the top of the priority list when you're running kids to practices or this, that, and the other. And so that always gets pushed aside. So now that we don't have those excuses, I think it becomes more glaring and more it weighs on us. And there are some things that I've just set in my mind that I am going to make use of this time. You know, we had just moved and there were still some boxes in the garage that I needed to go through. And I put them off because first it was too hot last summer to finish. Then it got too cold. And then now I don't have any excuses. And so I just decided, I was going to set a few goals. Now, for me, that is replenishing to accomplish. It is. But it's just like, trying to live up to a Pinterest board or a Pinterest mom. And that happened even before this. And so I would say, address those areas that are really pressing, that deep within your heart that need to be addressed. And we're not going to accomplish everything. But as always, I think we have to be careful, just like the media. I think we have to be careful how much time we spend looking at Instagram. Facebook and Instagram, it's never as bad as it seems, and it's never as good as it seems. It is not a true picture of life and reality.
I'd like to say that in conversations I've had with friends across the country, this is the one topic that always comes up. They say, I thought I was going to accomplish so much. I mean, that's the one thing that everybody's saying. I think it's our expectations, but this is not Christmas break. This is not summer.
Right.
Like, this is a crisis. So I think we have to be kind of gentle and kind with ourselves and not expect to really be able to turn a worldwide crisis into this period of great creativity and productivity, Right. Like, that's not fair. I think that's expecting a little too much.
It's hard when you see memes that are like, Mozart wrote his first symphony during, the Spanish flu. And you're like, oh my goodness.
Well, Marie, I don't know about you, but I feel like each of my weeks that I've been home have been completely different. Like, one week I've accomplished nothing. Another week, I have accomplished so much. And it just seems like each day has a different flavor. Each week has a different flavor. So there's kind of a balance.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I've heard people say, I've got the time, I just don't have the capacity. And I thought that's a really good way of thinking about it.
I think there's a lot of emotional fatigue that factors in, that drains us from some of that motivational energy to do those types of things. I think grace and mercy during these times. We've never walked here before. None of us.
Well, on the other end of the spectrum, I think in the name of self-care, maybe we feel like we have permission to engage in things that aren't really so healthy. Like, I've seen a lot of people posting about not showering or staying in their PJs all day or binge watching TV or eating a lot of junk food or just neglecting responsibility. What are your thoughts on this as self-care?
So I know for me personally, that would not be healthy. Now, I will say this. I've been guilty because I'm cooking more. I'm running my dishwasher every day. And with just the two of us, I didn't do that before. So I'm cooking more and we're snacking more. And so, I've got to make sure that I just don't let my eating get completely out of control. So while I may have it together in one area, I'm lacking in another area. And so my husband and I have been trying to walk in the evenings. I've been trying to do some video workouts, on TV. So I think if we really want to care for ourselves, we best not go there and make that a practice. And I would not say that I am the most motivated person in the whole wide world, but I know for me that is not healthy to not have some kind of plan. And in some ways, it seems like every day's the same, but then it seems like every day is different at the same time. I know that's contradictory, but that's what it feels like some days. And I'll get up, I'll ask my husband, what's your plan for today? And he has very specific plans because he truly is working from home. Being a homemaker at home without children, it's really up to me to come up with my own plan. And yet I think that's self-care at the utmost. There are things that we can do that we know for sure replenish our souls. And then there are things that are depleting. And I think now is a really good time to let the replenishing be on the upper scale and the depleting be lower down the scale, even though we can't always avoid it.
Well, I love that you mentioned that your husband's working from home now. And that's kind of the direction I wanted to take the next question is what about self-care for our marriages? Because at first glance, it might seem like being home with your spouse 24/7 would be a dream. But after a few weeks, I bet some listeners are struggling with cabin fever. If you have children in the home, never being alone with your spouse to have difficult conversations, what would your advice be for our marriages during this time?
Did I already say grace and mercy? It's kind of funny because of my friends that are in my same age group. Some of them are reconsidering the thought of their husband's retirement and what they might be thinking about that. I'm trying to think so that I am totally honest. Even the sweetest of sweetest of sweetest and the greatest of greatest of greatest marriages, there's some women who are struggling, just to be real honest. And we make light of it. It can be a real strengthening time for our marriages. And I think we should strive to do that. I think we also have to be realistic in the fact that this is very new and different. It's very new and different for me because my husband works very hard and was away from home. He traveled a lot, and now all of his travel's been canceled. And so I find him at home every day, and it's like, oh, wow, you're still here. And and it's not that I really do anything different than I would, but it's like, he never goes away. He's here for all the time. And it's like he has an office to himself and he does a lot of Zoom calls. And so he goes in his office and he shuts the door and it's like, oh, just in that deep breath. I'm glad he's going to work, even though it's right just down the hall. And but on the other side of that, the last few years of our life has been very, very busy, and he's been gone a lot. And so I'm really, really enjoying this time together. If we make use of it, it can be beneficial. I said it in jest, but I really do believe grace and mercy. And I know that I have prayed for my married children that God would draw them closer because they each have children and they don't have a lot of time. When they're together, it's hard for them to have a conversation without interruption because there's always somebody that needs something. And so I have prayed that God would use this time that's been forced on us to use it for benefit. And I think it really, really can work. What is God trying to tell us right now? What do you want us to see in this? And after this is over, what are some things that we've needed to change would draw us closer to one another, that would make our family life flow more smoothly, would be of benefit to all of us? But there are a lot of jokes flying around out there about marriages and couples being together that never have had this kind of time together.
Yes, Jeana, my husband has traveled for the past 10 years. And like Julie said earlier, too much of a good thing in any form is still too much of a good thing. So, of course, there's been lots of times over the years where I've been like, oh, I wish you didn't have to travel. But then to switch a clock and all of a sudden be home 24/7 for a month, I mean, you're going to rub up against each other and annoy each other. Whereas before, with a little bit of separation, you may not have noticed those things.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
I understand this, but Bryce sent me this text the other day, and I don't know why he sent it to me, but it says, I had the most loving wife. Last night, I woke up while she was holding a pillow tightly over my face to protect me from COVID-19.
Yes.
My favorite is still the woman in the dark closet with the flashlight, and she's hiding there because she said, my husband asked me the other day, where are the spoons? Like, we've been married for 30 years. Where are the spoons? And she said, if he doesn't know where the spoons are, I doubt he could find me in this closet.
Yes.
For sure. Well, that's a great kind of mood to end our self-care on. Ultimately, we always hope that our self-care results in us feeling better and laughing and more lighthearted. And I think that a lot of the suggestions that you've brought today are so helpful, Jeana. And I've enjoyed also hearing what you guys are doing, Mindy and Julie. And listeners, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this and you'll take some of these self-help tips and institute them in your life. We have some exciting news because we actually have a phone number where you could call us now. And Julie and I thought that it would be so fun if people wanted to call our new number and leave us a voicemail. Tell us what you're doing for self-care and we will share it on our episode. So let me give you the number. All right, it's real easy to remember, listeners. It's 209-MIDLIFE. 209-MIDLIFE. That's 209-643-5433. And that will go straight to voicemail, where you can leave us a message on what you are doing for self-care during the coronavirus. And we will share that next week on our episode.
Yes, we can't wait to hear from you.
Yes. All right, Jeana, why don't you tell listeners where they can find you?
On Instagram, you can find me at Jeana Floyd MacCom. On Facebook, it's Jeana Floyd. And Twitter would be at Jeana Floyd.
All right. Well, it's time to turn to our I'm a Fan segment. We always let our guests go first. So, Jeana, what are you a fan of this week?
Oh, man. You said one, but can I say more than one?
Sure.
Okay. One thing that I really love, because I'm a bubble bath girl, I love the coconut Epsom salts and the bubble bath that you can buy together. It's just the Dr. Teals that you can find at Walmart or Walgreens. But I love the coconut scent.
That sounds great.
I am rereading a book that I heard the author speak on a podcast, and I was so intrigued by that I ordered the audiobook because I was spending more time in the car. So I listened to the audiobook, and then I kept thinking, I wish I could underline or highlight or write that down. So I ordered the hard copy. It is a great book that would go along with what we're going through now and self-care. The name of the book is Sacred Rest.
Okay.
And it's by Saundra Dalton-Smith.
Okay, great. That sounds like a good one. We'll definitely put a link to both of those in the show note, Sacred Rest, and we can read it while we're in the bubble bath with our coconut Epsom salts.
Yes, for sure.
That's awesome.
Self-care.
Yes, that is self-care for sure. All right, Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
It's kind of ironic to say this after the episode we've just recorded, but I'm a huge fan of having free time. I say that tongue in cheek because as much as I've struggled with it, I've really appreciated it because when I get dressed up, it's because I want to. It's not because I have to. If I feel like sitting down and doing nothing, I can do it. If I want to cook and bake all day, I can do it. I have time to experiment with makeup, with doing my hair different, decorating my house. But I've really appreciated the ability to slow down and enjoy just the normal activities that I was rushing through before I had to stay home.
Yes. Well, free time is a wonderful thing. And I think all of us can say that we're fans of our newfound free time. Some people might feel like they have more than they wanted, but I think everybody's happy to have some margin in their lives. Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
All right, I am a fan of some new jogger pants, and I got these actually before the quarantine. But one day I was going from an event at church straight to my workout, and I had forgot to put in the pants of my workout clothes. I had shoes and shirt and all that, but I didn't have the pants. I did not have time to go home. Target was too congested. So I ran by REI and I just ran in and picked up these pants, and I get up to the checkout and they are quite expensive.
Okay.
But I thought, oh, well, they can take things back. I don't know. I'm just going to wear these. So I've pretty much been in them every day since then. Getting my money's worth out of them. They are the most comfortable pants. They're that really soft t-shirt material.
Ooh,
You know, I'm talking about the super soft. And the brand is Vuori.
Okay.
I don't even know how you say that.
Vuori?
Vuori
Who knows?
or-
Yeah.
But now I've been seeing a lot of ads on Instagram for them, but they are super comfortable.
Oh, well, isn't that funny because you just bought those on a whim and they turn out to be some of your favorite pants?
Yeah.
And then who knew you'd be at home so much that you could literally wear them out?
They are multifunctional pants. I go to church in them now.
That's funny. That's funny. Oh, well, I'm a fan of something that kind of goes along with self-care, but it's self-care like for everybody in the house. So I have a noise machine and one of my daughters has a noise machine, but my son has been reluctant to have one. And I think this week he finally decided, you know what, as a point of self-care, I need to not be woken up by every single noise in the house. And he broke down and asked me to order one. So I usually get these at Bed Bath & Beyond, but since they're closed, I got it off Amazon, the exact same one. And I'll link to it in our show notes. It's HoMedics Sound Spa. It's just $19.99. And I use it every night. You can put batteries in it or you can use it with electricity. So I often bring it to hotel rooms and everything. But I think just like noise canceling headphones and sound machines can make a big difference in people not getting on each other's nerves.
Oh, I love that.
Yes, yes.
Mindy, you might need to get some of those.
Can I get a discount if I buy over like 4 or 5?
I think you should be able to. Well, if you need a little peace and quiet, get yourself a noise machine or noise canceling headphones. Julie and Mindy, it was great to talk with you. Jeana, thank you so much for joining us. It was so great talking to you today.
Thank you. Y'all are just delightful. So much fun. You ask good questions, and I thoroughly enjoyed being with y'all today.
We did too.
We really enjoyed it. Yes. All right. And listeners, we want to hear this week from you. Call us on our new phone number, 209-MIDLIFE, and let us know what you are doing for self-care during this time of quarantine. Ladies, we'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds great.
Goodbye.
See you, girls.
Bye. We're so happy you joined us today. If you'd like to get the show notes for today's episode, please email your name and address to midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com and write show notes in the subject line. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.